So the following week, somehow, I can't remember the details, but I bumped into Ted. Now, how I knew Ted Josiah is through Pete Odera. There's a time they wanted to come to the UK and do a tour of the UK, and Pete Odera got in touch with me in the UK. And I think particularly they wanted to do a tour in Manchester or something, and I tried to help out, I think, and it didn't, I don't know if it worked out, it didn't quite work out. Anyway, I knew Pete from way back, from a very good friend of mine called Philip Gitau. We were best of friends, so that's how I got to know Pete. So when I came back, and I remember it was Pete introduced me to Ted, somewhere on Kiamburu that used to have a venue. I met him there somewhere, somehow, properly. And so anyway, a week after I'm resigning, I meet Ted, and we're talking, and by the way, the details are scanty. I can't remember some of these things, so Ted will have to back me up on this and remind me exactly of the details. But he said, well, there's this artist who I've discovered, and I think he's got a lot of potential, and he knew of my activities in England and whatnot. He said, I'd like you to come and hear him. And I remember I came to hear this artist in KPCU, Haile Selassie. There was a club called Pisces, I think. I think it was called Pisces, owned by a guy called George Kibathi. Somewhere off Haile Selassie, Choro there. And I watched this artist. There was a show, and I just watched this artist, and I'd never really watched Kenyan pop per se, not recently anyway. I mean, I knew of course of Zanaziki and others, African Heritage, we grew up with that. But so I'm watching this guy, I'm like, wow, this guy has some energy.
It's a bit different.
Wow. And so after the show, he was introduced to me, and Ted said, this is David Mureithi, this is Harrison Gonjiri, aka Hardstone. And soon after, I was managing Hardstone. And that's how my relationship with the Kenyan music industry actually started.
Yeah.
Because at the time, Ted was recording at Sing Sound Studios. But his artists would record, and Ted didn't have the ability to manage them. So his artists he'd record these artists, and then what, So we basically put together the plan. It's like, okay, we'll do this. And that's how Ted and I started working together. So I set up Sunset Promotions, based in town at Hughes Building.
Yeah.
And so we used to always work between Sunset Promotions and Sing Sound Studios, always running between the two, at the early days. So the whole load of artists in two, that's Temi and Natasha, you've already done a series on them. Kawesa from Uganda, I started managing him then.
Whoa.
Kalamashaka.
From a management point, explain to us now what you were doing on the scene?
Basically, my role was to first understand the music, understand the artist, understand what they were trying to achieve, and help them achieve it. I mean, to be honest, more times than not, because we had a bit more knowledge usually than the artists, you'd also sort of try and push them to do a lot more than they could, that they were thinking they could achieve.
Yeah. And you had been exposed. You had done this in the
heavily
UK.
Exposed. Yeah. Actually, while I was in the UK working as an auditor, I was lucky enough to work in the entertainment division for 6 months of Ernst & Young. And I used to do audits for groups like The Police, Sting, Thorn, EMI Records, etc. So I had real exposure into the music industry from a financial point of view. So I could see where money goes. I actually started understanding IP back then. Understanding copyright is important. It's so important. And I remember we did register Hardstone with MCSK back in 1997.
What?
Yes, we did, indeed. But that's another story altogether we won't get into right now. However, that's how I basically started managing Kenyan artists. It was luckily through to Ted's introduction to Kenyan musicians. But I also started doing events. That's what my company also did. I started doing events, for corporate events, launches. I remember we did for Marshall. And this was brought about, my first client was actually Gina Dean Karaoke of Gina Dean Group.
Yeah.
She actually gave me my first event management, first and many others that followed, event management gigs, basically.
Yeah.
Which culminated to us actually being the event manager for Safaricom launch. We're the ones who did all the launches subcontracted by her company. But anyway, back to the artists.
So at this time, are you Is AudioVault in existence?
No.
Okay. It's just
It's Sunset Promotions working with an MOU with Sing Sound Studios.
oh yes, Sing Sound Studios, because that's where Ted is.
Yes, with it was owned by Mohammed Mahmoud and Amy Juma,
Yeah.
brother of Mohammed Juma.
Can I shock you?
Shocked me.
This when I met you, this same era. The first time I ever met you, I've come from the UK. It's December 1996, and my famo have opened up a club over here in Hurlingham. The name of the club was Zigzag.
Oh my goodness.
Zigzag had two sides. DJ Paddy and all those guys used to DJ on this side, and then on Zag,
Guest DJs.
the DJ who was doing the official opening and the launch of it was none other than
DJ Delight.
DJ Delight.
And DJ Willie and Joe, the twins.
Yes, Willie.
Were also there. That I think. Hey, yeah. Wow. Menipeleka.
Just take your bit back.
Menipeleka.
Yeah, and you actually called me because I'm a kid. They're setting up this thing, and you guys are coming, of course, to check it out because you're going to play for that whole deck. And you showed me about now how to tempo match to.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Tempo
Okay.
match, but
There you go.
I didn't like the Zag side. It was too soul, so I went to the Zig. But you were actually DJing then from that time.
Yes.
I mean, heavy. You are the DJ to go to
Yeah.
for a certain kind of.
Because I used to do choices. When I used to come on holidays, there's a club called Visions.
Yeah.
I did Kani. I did a whole load of clubs
Yeah.
in Kenya and around Kenya.
Okay.
Those are fun times. Wow,
Yeah.
you've taken me back.
And what I'm learning from your story, there's different lives that you have. You've got
Absolutely.
this whole DJ life.
Absolutely.
You've got this event life, which
Absolutely.
is a monkey on its own.
is.
Then you've got now the artist management.
Absolutely.
So let's a bit zone in on this artist management,
Okay.
because now this is where I think a lot of people would get it. So now you and Ted have this sort of MOU with your
This
company.
MOU,
Yeah.
This is 97, 98, getting into 99 sort of period. And we did a lot of joint projects together. We just put our heads together. It either comes through me, it comes through him. We put our heads together, we look at the budget, we just do it. We did a lot of work for the UN actually around that time. So we'd include a lot of our artists into those projects. We started doing some radio advertising. We started doing some all sorts of things, honestly speaking, gigs, of course, and that's actually what culminated that relationship and this thing of going back and forth. They said, you know what, let's just
Be one.
let's just be one. Let's just get together one place. And at the time, another DJ who had also started exactly the same time I started DJing, he started here and then went to the UK to study sound engineering. One young DJ called Mike Rabah, aka Mr. Homeboys himself, the original Homeboys. The original homeboy had come from the UK, was looking for somewhere to perch. Ted mentioned, hey, Mike's here, can we do something? It's good at sound engineering, He had some equipment as well. So that's how actually AudioVault was formed. We got together, looked for a site, actually right opposite State House.
Yeah.
We had on Densprit Road, we had a nice place there. And we put together a studio. I'll never forget, we went to Gikomba. We have a picture of the studio somewhere, and I know you have some pictures, and I'll get you some pictures. But we built that studio ourselves with the help of a few carpenters. But Ted is a creative. Let me tell you one thing about Ted. He's probably the most creative person I actually know on this continent, if you ask me. I don't know if he's talked about it, but Ted was a graphic designer before he started, his career in music. A lot of people don't realize that. So he's always had this creative design mind in his head. So he actually came up with the concept, of AudioVault, and we had some blue and we had some zebra. Actually, that's how Blue Zebra afterwards became, because of the design we had originally done in AudioVault. But it was very plush. We made, honestly, when we had finished, so what we did, we went and bought, what are these light bows called? Just light bow, plywood. Then went to Gikomba, bought some velvety type cloth, stuffed it with blue mattress, whatever, bandika, stapled at the back, and those were panels, and we put those as our sound panels.
Yeah,
but when it was done, I mean, check this picture out. When it was done, it looked like you're somewhere in LA.
Yep.
At Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis's, Jay-Z's studio. At the time, it looked good, and then we had a couch there. So you come to listen when we had clients. They come, they just chill, give them food, and you know, it was we had class. We had class. And it was a house.
But it's so cool. You used what you had, the budget. It's not that.
Yeah, that thing was done in budget. Tulikuwa na madeni, my friend. We had loans. So we started this, you know, the studio, and
who's there? So it's just the three of you guys, right?
It's the three of us. So here's the thing, you know, up to today, I cannot produce a song. I do not even know what happens in us. I was not interested in what. I was interested in what goes on in there, but not from a technical point of view. Up to today, I enter a studio, I am as lost as the next person. Because that was left, I always say, delegate. I used to handle, and I'll never forget, I never used to enter the studio when a song was being recorded. I always wanted to hear it, end product. So after they finished, Ted would always call me, hey, what do you think? Hey, what do you think? I'd be like, it's a bit of cool. Then he'd go back in his knees. What do you think? I say, okay, here we have a winner. We have a winner. So for me, mine was to sell it.
Yes, I get.
Both to sell the artist and the song. So that's how I looked at it, from a very, can this play, where would this play? Who's the audience, you know, kind of thing. And I think that's where Ted and I really worked really well. I mean, he was creative director, I was managing director, and, you know, events director, and we literally just, because he created, I executed, so to speak, you know, and worked very well, because we each knew our roles, and there was no, you know, cross.
Where's Mike at this time?
Mike was still with us, but he left after a year because he wanted us to invest in Homeboys. What ended up being Baricho Road, etc. I mean, Homeboys had always been there, obviously, but he wanted the structure that, you know, that was his vision, actually, when he came back home. And we didn't share in his vision, to be fair, because we never really thought of a DJ school, etc. I mean, in hindsight, man, Mike, I'm sorry.
Push.
Ningenunua 10% shares. Ningekuwa na roll kama wewe, lakini sijali. Nakam. He did very well with Homeboy. So he left.
So that's why he split.
Yes, because he needed to just realize his own vision. I mean, now he planted his feet at home, back home, and I think it was a good transition being in Audio Vault, because, you know, it got him into the scene.
Okay. And
now it was time for him to fly, and it was, you know, it's amicable, and and he moved on.
So when he came, I'm just trying to understand, because in fact you're the first person who's ever explained this. And I realized what a lot of people think are beefs later on when you hear from the source's mouth. You're like, okay, it was exactly what you're talking about, different visions. But in that time when he was here, what was he? Was Homeboys, when he came, was Homeboys already there?
Not really, no. Not as a. I mean, Homeboys, the DJs were there,
and he was a DJ
not
as
even
well.
en masse, because DJ John was actually the face of Homeboys DJs, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
He wasn't really DJing at the time.
Okay.
At least I can't remember him DJing at the time. In fact, I think by the time he went to the UK, he stopped. Well, he was DJing in the UK a bit, but when he came back, he was really focusing on sound, audio engineering.
Okay, I get.
So, so his vision was really to set up a school, a DJ school, and an audio engineering, and an audio visual training school, etc., etc. Which is now modern day Homeboys. So, no, it wasn't really there as such. No, not really at all.
Okay.
Not in anything close to what is there today. There was no physical place Homeboys was per se. You know? Yeah, no building.
So who are the artists at this time?
So this is where my memory becomes a bit scanty. But by the time we moved to Audio Vault, we already signed up, and I was already managing Waire, Nazizi, Into. Hardstone had already left the country by then. Kalamashaka, I was still managing Kalamashaka. We had just now, when we joined Audio Vault, started, and I remember we did the project with Mike also there, Gidi Gidi Maji Maji.
Yes.
As much as they had been discovered when Ted was still at Sing Sound Studio, we sort of absorbed them into Audio Vault.
Yes.
And then after that, there were groups like Warogi Wawili who recorded on Kenyan's second chapter. Kenyan first chapter was done whilst we're still operating out of Sing Sound Studios.
Exactly.
So we do it as an, you know, we sort of hired the services of Sing Sound Studios externally to do our projects.
Nice.
And it was still our project, so to speak.
Yeah. It was just a studio you didn't have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now we had our studio, we did Kenyan's second chapter, which had a whole lot of people, David Ohingo, it had Warogi Wawili, it had Whew, memory. Yeah.
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 Because it had Nazizi, it had
Nazizi.
Darling P.
It had Nikki as well, Darling P.
Yeah.
4-in-1. I think that's why we recorded Tingbadi Malo. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Tingbadi Malo
Yes.
was on that. So in fact, let me ask you, again, this is again the second time you pop into my life, but this time I see in a different capacity, because the Safaricoms at that time was a company called BAT and Benson and Hedges.
Yes.
And my mother was slightly involved, but I want to understand the scene, because my mom didn't explain these things to me. So it's like I need to hear it from yourself to understand what the music scene was. But how I knew is because she'd come with those CDs, and even later on, Ted's Atari, where music production used to be done, actually ended up in our digs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I think you guys were now moving up another level.
Yes.
But explain that scene at this time.
So, the scene at the time, and this is 1999, when we had just formed AudioVault actually, and the scene at the time was Johari Clef. Just from a studio point of view, was Johari Clef, Bruce Odhiambo,
yeah.
Samawati Studios, Suzanne Gashukia, Upembe. Which other studios were really there? I mean, this is way
Maurice
before.
Oyando?
This is Maurice Oyando.
Yeah.
In fact, Ted, I mean, if he didn't already, I mean, Maurice Oyando was a huge influence into why he started recording, producing. Maurice Oyando, there were three other studios, but those were the sort of more better known ones. There were a few others, I'm sure, I know, but I just can't remember. But those are the better known ones, so to speak. Mahypes. And this is way before Gopa, way before Caliph, happened even. In fact, if I'm not wrong, Lucas did a stint. Did you do a stint with Ted? I have to check on that. Yeah. Lucas of Ogopa, I think he did a stint as our sound engineer, I think. Or with, I can't even remember. Yeah. There was something I remember. Anyway, we were actually at the time, I have to say, dominating the airwaves. Between like 97 and 99, getting into 2000, but definitely between 97 and 99, the artists we had in our stable were dominating the airwaves. I mean, Hearthstone, Kalamashaka, Gidi Gidi, Waire and Nazizi. Necessary Noise hasn't been formed at this time.
Yeah.
And then we get approached by BAT, and they say we have this big event that we hold internationally called Benson and Hedges Golden Tones. And it's a big show with artists, blah, 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 blah. So we had a briefing. And remember, Ted, Mike, and myself were there, and we're sitting in this office off Likoni Road. And we are listening to this thing. And this was the biggest thing that had ever come in front of us. And we're told we're the only guys, seemingly, who seem to be capable of doing this. And remember, this was 6 months before the show happened. And we're like, of course we can do it. We drove back to the office and we're like, oh my God, what have we just agreed to? Can we handle this? And for the next 6 months, our obsession with this event happened. And I remember we had to do literally nearly everything for the event, in the sense that we had to source the artists.
Oh, because, We
had to travel around, and they wanted East African artists. They were bringing a Nigerian, a guy called Ras Kimono as the main guest artist. But they wanted us to choose East African artists. So Ted and Mike had to travel around East Africa. I tell you, there are even places in Kenya we didn't even know existed. Past Busia, there's a place you get to, you come out of your car, you walk 2 kilometers, and the time they had to record all these people to come back and do a presentation with BAT.
What?
I remember they told me they walked and they found a band called Camilla Band, who had the most unique instruments that I've never seen since then. Something called, I think it was called the Ritieni or something. And it was like, all the instruments were shaped like a boat, but there were different versions. Like you'd have a smaller one, which would be like a harp, one would be like a drum, and this band had never even been to Kisumu. They were like in shags. How Ted even got to hear about it, I don't even know. But these guys ended up on that big stage.
What?
And they were amazing. They actually nearly stole the show. They were amazing. And so we had to go look for different bands. Mombasa, I think we had Mombasa Roots. In Uganda, we had a Frigo band, one of the biggest bands, especially at the time. They were like the Mombasa Roots of Uganda. We had Kawesa. Tanzania, we had a group called Kwanza Unit. They were the equivalent of Kalamashaka in Tanzania. They were the first hip-hop outfit in Tanzania that was quite well known. Kwanzaa unit. Wow. Yeah, I don't even know how I remember that.
That is history, man.
And then we had all I remember is we had 21 artists. And it was a 12-hour show. It was starting at 6 p.m., ending at 6 a.m. And we had to organize the whole thing, organize the artists, BAT organized the interviews, but we had to basically be in charge of event and talent management around the entire event. It took us 6 months. We had to get the plan for all the artists, for their stage plan, the technical rider, put it all together. I mean, it was work. And I remember we had something like 40 artists, and then we had to whittle it down to 21. And we were doing these presentations with a big group at BAT and saying, no, that one, no, yep, that one, yeah, no. And what I remember, however, one thing I really remember, this was one gig. I think artists had never been paid this amount of money. And we are the ones who went to the artists, how much do you want to be paid? And you know what? Another secret comes out. Whatever the artist asks, because we're being humble, we want to be paid this. I'm like, no, double that.
Yeah.
You're going to work for it, trust me, but double that. So for the first time, I know a number of artists, to be honest, were paid way more than they even imagined.
Have to imagine. But there was nothing before that.
There was nothing before.
That could have made
them. And they were treated honestly. There's no gig that I've done even since then that has. They were treated like royalty, to be honest. And I remember all the artists had to be kept at Pan Africa Hotel for 3 days prior to the event. Like you're literally locked in. And so my team, I had a team of 6 people. There's a friend of mine, Martin Mulwa, who's a well-known event manager, etc. And he helped me just take care of all the artists. Like if you had an interview at Capital, there's a van, there's a car, you had to coordinate all of that. You go for an interview, come back. Masimari, I remember, Zanaziki was there. Oh gosh, can I remember all the bands? There was a whole load of bands, Kenyan, Nairobi, whatever,
East Africa wise.
East Africa,
yeah, the way you just said.
But we had to like lock them in because we didn't want to lose people going off, especially when you're doing it in Nairobi, I need to go home, and then they disappear. And there was so much at stake. And they had really been hyped on radio and television. It was the biggest show ever. Nothing had ever been done like this ever before in the history of Kenyan music. Of this scale for local artists, that is. So we did the gig. They flew in a team from overseas, from the UK, called Red 14. And they came with equipment. I'll never forget this. They came with equipment. And this is where I really saw the skills of Mike Rabah and his training in the UK. That guy measured. You see where the carnival stage is today?
Yeah.
If you look at it, kabisa, it's not exactly dead center. It's a slight angle. Mike Rabah measured the perfect angle for sound, sijui wind, sijui nini, and said, this is where the stage has to be. I was like, Kupe ulisoma. And that's where Carnival stage is today was actually put after Benson and Hedges Golden Tones.
No.
Yes. I think they literally, because the marks were
there.
Yeah,
they were like,
that is where Kani built the stage.
Yeah.
Literally. From afterwards. And they're like, hey, anyway, this place can work. And we had like, I don't know, we had like 10, 15,000 people in that gig. And let me tell you what was interesting, and I'm very proud of this as an event manager. The most we went off the program, please note, every artist was half an hour, half an hour, half an hour. We have 21 artists, we have 12 hours. Not everyone was half an hour, some were shared.
Yeah.
Like Nazizi and Gidi Gidi were not even big then, they were just upcoming artists. So we gave them a slot. Nazizi was the big name, Kalamashaka was the big name at the time. And we only went off the program by 7 minutes at any one point.
What?
The show started on time at 6 p.m. It ended at exactly 6:01 a.m. in the morning.
Over.
12-hour show.
Who MC'd by then? Can you remember?
Not at all. Do you know, I actually cannot remember. Wow, I actually can't remember. I have to find that out.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
You're off. After that, you guys are you're in a different country.
Actually, so Benson Hedges loved the work we did so much. We became part of the family, to be honest. We actually did first. Kalamashaka went and did, no, they didn't do the gig. We were sent to Uganda. They were doing the same thing in Uganda with Akina Bebe Cool and Afrigo Band and all this. We were sent to join the team to see how the production happened, basically. And then after that, Kalamashaka got an opportunity to perform for Benson and Hedges Golden Tones in Lagos.